Hello, welcome to our inaugural episode on wisdom and justice. So here we talk about life wisdom. We use a lot of information. We use a lot of headlines that may have come through the news and just things that we've learned over life, and we basically reorient those things that we learned in how we were taught to think about them, and we basically refilter that through the way that nature intended it to be thought of, or the way God intended it to be thought of. His wisdom is the perfect wisdom. So we're talking about wisdom and justice. So these things are always kind of two things that kind of go hand in hand, because you have to be wise in order to discern what the right justice is. And one thing that we're finding out, a lot of people who were former attorneys, former judges, or even current judges, they'll tell you that the criminal justice system is not about justice. Think about this. When someone commits a crime, you read them their what's called Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. But this is what you say to them. Even if you choose to speak, anything you say will be used against you. See, they say anything you say can and will be. Just get rid of the can be used against you. Anything you say will be used against you. So therefore, how can you ever find out the correct judgment? I mean, you're going through a lot of unnecessary steps right away, because you can't even ask the person, did you do this? Because anything that they say, you will use it against them. If they didn't do it, you will use it against them. If they did do it, you will certainly use it against them. But because people are so worried, because they didn't do it, they're so worried that if they say something, it'll be used against them. So right off the rip, the first 10 seconds of any type of criminality or any type of criminal charge or any type of arrest, where the justice system begins, right then it's already come to a unjust end, because anything that person says, good or bad, will be used against them. So these are some of the concepts that we need to understand, because now as we develop the new world around us, and we talk about this in a lot of our other videos, some of my other channels, go look at that. We talk about the new world, what that's going to look like, and and we don't wish the new world to come, some future distant event. It's right now. It's the way we make it right now. So today I want to talk to you guys about a case that happened over here in Michigan, actually, Oxford, Michigan. It's actually a community I'm very familiar with. I spent a lot of time volunteering out in that Oxford, Lake Orion area. And you heard about there was a school shooting, and they've charged, in an unprecedented case, they've charged the parents with, actually they've charged them with 4 or 5 counts of homicide. May have been manslaughter or something to that degree. And I've been looking at this case unfold. Now the case with the actual shooter, we're going to get to that in a second, or probably even another video. This video I wanted to focus on what's just, what's the right and just thing to do, and what's going on with the parents. Even though it was a huge tragedy, it could have been avoided, should have been avoided. There's a lot of people to blame, and if we're going to put the parents on this one, then we got to put a lot of other people. And I know at first it seems like these people parents are just the scum of the earth. But what they're doing is, and this is the wrong thing to do, this is wrong. And I'm very surprised it's being done, because the prosecutor who's doing this is a very progressive prosecutor. She doesn't call herself a progressive prosecutor. She's a very inclusive progressive. At least that's the way that she expresses herself or comes across, and just different things that she's done and been involved with, and different stances and things of that nature. But at the core, I'm looking at it at the core, it's nothing but injustice. So here's the thing. This case is being tried in the press, and they're doing this on purpose, because they know if they can influence jurors with erroneous facts that have nothing to do with the case, they think this is how they're going to win their case. But it's not about winning or losing. That's another thing with the justice system. It's not about winning or losing. It's about right or wrong. It's not about what's the percentage of cases this district attorney has won, 98.6%, so we should re-elect them. No. How many of those cases did you get right? And what they're going back and finding out and doing studies, they're saying a lot of these prosecutors have gotten less than 50% of these cases right. A lot of them. Not just one or two, tons. There's all types of research, all types of groups are nonprofit groups are popping up out of everywhere showing like, man, sometimes it's as much as 50% to 75% of these cases have been tried incorrectly, wrongly, or there was missteps or things of that nature. So you take a look at this case with I think the names of the Crumleys. Take a look at this, and I saw this. So they had in the paper that their parents were 6 months behind on their mortgage payments. They had recently sold a couple of horses. The mother allegedly had an affair that was through text, and a couple of other things. Now, the number one thing everyone should be concerned about is something called a straw purchase when purchasing a gun. And for those of you who haven't purchased guns or don't have a CPL or don't know what a straw purchase is, straw purchase is when someone who is actually a CPL license holder or is authorized to buy a gun, when someone actually goes and buys a gun for someone else. So you go and buy a gun. And it doesn't even matter if that other person has the ability to even buy a gun. For example, my wife went to go purchase a gun and she had her card. I left my card. She went to go purchase a gun for me, the same place. And they said, you can't do that. Even though I'm a CPL, she's a CPL. And they said, you can't purchase this gun for him because because we heard the conversation and we know that the gun's going to be for your husband. So even though I'm a licensed CPL, because we had a discussion about her buying the gun for me because I left my wallet, she couldn't buy the gun for me. So they wouldn't even sell us any more guns that day. It's called a straw purchase. It's when someone who's authorized to buy a gun buys someone a gun for someone who's unauthorized. So in this particular case, the main law that everyone should be looking at is the parents bought a gun for their 15, 16-year-old son, however it is. How do we know this? Well, he bragged about it on social media that my parents bought me a gun. He bragged about it on social media that he was going to the gun range. He bragged about it on social media. His mother bragged about it that she was taking her son to have some bonding time with her son at the gun range with his gun. Now keep in mind, listen to where they're using this gun at, the gun range. Michigan law says you cannot sell a gun to anyone. I think you have to be 21 or over. And of course the straw purchase, of course that, goes without say because you can't even do it at all. But anyone 21 or older can purchase a gun. You can buy a gun for someone else if they're using it specifically for target practice and it's locked away. Now we know the gun that was in the Oxford case, we know that was locked away. Somehow he got the key, but they did do the right thing and locked it away. And they were using it for target practice. So here we have a law in which they followed the law. They're actually using it for target practice, and we have those snapshots on social media, right? But they're not being charged with that. Instead, we're going to make a case around they weren't paying attention to their son, which is every parent in Oakland County. I can tell you that every parent in Oakland County is working 2 jobs trying to make ends meet. And I'm telling you, that's going to be just every parent probably in Michigan. They were behind on their mortgage payments. That should not come into play. That should not come into play. They needed to sell their horses to make mortgage payments. That should not come into play. That has nothing to do with it. She was having an emotional affair with somebody. We should not know about that. Another reason why we should know about this, what is this? This is an ongoing investigation. Whenever we try to find out facts of a case, the police always come back and say, and the attorneys always say, we cannot comment on anything dealing with an ongoing investigation. So facts are being purposely leaked to form this opinion on the parents. And at first, you're like, oh man, put these parents under the jail. They knew, blah, 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 blah. No, we got to look at this thing for what it is. We can't look at it the way it's being tried in the news. We actually have to look at the facts of the situation. So the facts of the situation is the gun that they purchased for their son, which in most cases is an illegal act. In Michigan, in the state of Michigan, it isn't. So they actually were following the law on that. They bought the gun for target practice, to take them to target practice, and you're allowed to do that in the state of Michigan. Every state is different, which it shouldn't be. Go and look at my video. I did a video about this one law in the land. It should be one law in all of the land. We shouldn't have a different law in my county, my city. This is what's going on with marijuana right now. When marijuana got legalized in Colorado, where do you think arrest? You think arrest went? Because they were one of the first main states to legalize it. Do you think arrest for marijuana went up, or way down? Now, intuitively, you would think way down, right? No, it went way up because the way they did it is legal. They put that out there, but it's not really legal because if you're in this particular city, it's legal. But now, when you're driving to another different city, I mean, if you're going to just heck, even for me to go to my local grocery store, I'm passing to at least two cities to get there. So, and each city can have their own ordinance. Each county had its own ordinance. And here's the thing. The main thing why it doesn't matter what any state does with legalizing marijuana, it's still always going to be illegal. Why? Because at the United States level, the federal level, it's illegal. Yes, at the federal level, marijuana is still illegal. So why are we saying that it's legal? This is all has to do with money and profit, but is at people's expense going to jail and prison and ruining their records and ruining their lives at the expense of profit and public officials giving themselves profit sharing checks. You know, we saw that happened with the COVID and all this stuff like that. This is what's going on with this. So we've had these different laws. So the thing is, we have a law in the state of Michigan that says the way they purchased this gun, it was pretty much kosher. So now put that aside. Now the second thing is they're saying that they knew that their kid was a danger. So here's the thing: the day that it happened, the day before it happened, the kid got called into the principal to the guidance counselor's office. The next day, the kid got called into the guidance counselor office with the parents. Now the principal wasn't there allegedly. Allegedly, the principal wasn't there. I don't know how you have something that rises to this level if you're really concerned about kids' safety and about someone shooting someone, and this is the second day in a row and the principal's nowhere in the conversation. Because if the principal's not going to be a part of this conversation, I'm just really interested in what type of conversations he would be interested in. And from what I understand, this school, Oxford High, they're really big on anti-vaping. Any teacher, guidance counselor at any time can search your bag at any time for any reason if they feel that you're vaping. But you won't do the same thing if you feel that someone's a public threat or has a gun. We got to really think about that. Now, what that logic has to do with is called minoring on the majors and majoring on the minors. Let me tell you what that's about. Minoring on the majors means that the things that are really, really important, we're not paying any attention to. This is kind of like what's going on right now with everything what's going on with the Build Back Better plan. Like everyone's mad at Munchkin and all these different things like that. But meanwhile, like there's girls being shot in the dressing room, shot dead. There's all types of rape and pillaging being done. Hear about the prisons or fights they're turning those into fight clubs. Like there's all types of things that are really, 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 really impertinent. Climate change, what's going on with the weather. I mean, I think it was like almost 70 degrees in Alaska. I know this summer it snowed in Argentina. Like think about all these things that are going on. The COVID cases in Michigan. When Michigan shut down in 2020, the cases were at 2,500 a day. 2,500 a day, Michigan was like, we're shutting down. There was 25,000 cases just in the last 2 days. 25,000 cases. Just on December 27th and 28th, there was 12,000 cases each day. And Michigan is still up. People aren't even wearing masks in Michigan. They're not even wearing masks. So that's an example. We're minoring on the things that the major things that we should be talking about. We're spending a lot of time talking about what's going on in Washington, what this person said, what's going on. Kanye West just bought a house next to this person. We're spending a lot of time on that. But now, on the converse, on the opposite end, we're majoring on the minors. So the things that are really should be minor, we just spend a lot of time on them. We major on the minors. And this is what's going on in this particular case. When you would be more concerned about kids vaping than somebody shooting up a school, and you would actually have several days worth of so-called evidence. So the day that this event happened on a Tuesday. The day, I think it was November 30th. The day that it happened, the day that the shooting happened, the parents met with the guidance counselors. The guidance counselors said you cannot, that you have to take your kid home. Please take your kid home, and he has 2 days to get into some type of therapy or something like that. The parents said no, we're keeping him at school. Now a lot of people are getting on the parents. A lot of people are like, see, they should have taken him out. They told him no, they should have taken him out. No, we have to listen to the whole thing. This is what the scriptures say. There's actually a scripture that says, he that first to plead his cause seems right until he's examined. So because the way they're trying this case, they're shaping it in a way where you think you're getting the information, but you need to take a further view up. And I wouldn't even know a lot of this stuff. I had not had family members in education. Did you know that it's illegal to tell parents that they can't come to school, their kids can't come to school until they get a psychological evaluation? You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it. I don't know what the legal term is in terms of being illegal or what have you, but you are not allowed to do that. And I have family members who are principals, and this is the state law. You're not allowed to do that. So the parents actually did what was within their right. And if we're saying that it wasn't the right thing to do, then we need to take a look at rights then. We just need to take a look at rights, because something that is within your right to do should always be ethically moral and the right thing to do. And if it's not, we need to examine rights. So the thing is, at the end of the day, so they weren't going off that particular rule, the school, when they let them in. But the school decided, because the parents said, no, we're going to let them in the school anyway. So the school's responsible. The school's responsible for this. And the principal wasn't at this conversation. This is apparently, I say apparently, allegedly, because we don't really have all the facts. They just released the facts that they want to release. But allegedly, this was just with the guidance counselors, the school psychologist, the school, what have you. So that particular person said, okay, well, now your kid can stay. And then 2 hours later, we have, a lot of people dead, a lot of people injured, and, we have what happened. So it's just like, at the end of the day, the schools have more authority over their own property than a parent would. So a school should be able to say, no, it's either your kid, he either leaves campus, you either take him off campus, or you could pick him up at the Oakland County Sheriff's office. And so there's a lot of things that we need to look at in this case. And I'm looking at how they try this case, because an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. See, now this is everything we see. We understand that there's actually a scripture that says, I think it's in Ecclesiastes, I think it's 1:9. The thing that has been is the thing that will be. There is no new thing under the sun. So the thing is, we've seen fake evidence planted by cops. We've seen over prosecution. We've seen jurors being falsely influenced. We've seen over sentencing. All these things. But because it didn't hit home, because it was maybe happened to another race, maybe people that we didn't like, maybe people that we felt that we deserved it anyway. When the truth be told, we all have things, and the people are saying that have things that have dirt and things like that nature, where they deserve something and they didn't get the punishment that they deserved. And I know God's been gracious to me, where I've never been punished according to the things that I did. So, and that's everybody. So we've seen cases like that, but we're indifferent because of how we felt about it emotionally, instead of what was the right thing to do. So now this is happening to maybe a much different demographic, a much different race, because now we're seeing this is Oakland County, upper middle class. This is one of the richest counties in America. One of the richest counties in America. Probably. I remember there was a stat. I know this for a fact. Orchard Lake Road, which is in just south of where Oxford is, that street was richer than any street in 90210, that zip code. Just in terms of the wealth with the banks and the stores and the things of that nature. Let me tell you how rich that street is. Orchard Lake Road, which is just south where this is, Oakland County, it's in central Oakland County. It's one of the richest streets. I know in the 90s it was one of the richest streets that there was in America. That road, up until recently, had the number one payway. Up until about 7-8 years ago, had the number one payway in America in terms of revenue. That street had the number one payway in terms of revenue in the nation. So all the payways in the nation, rank them all the hundreds, rank them up. That one's number one revenue. They had to close and move out because the rent was that high. They weren't making any money. This is the type of wealth that we're talking about, where you can have the number one brand, number one franchise in America, and it's still not enough because you're not making enough for the rent. And Payway is not an enormously large. It's definitely not as big as an indoor dining. This is just bigger than maybe a fast food restaurant in terms of space. So think about that for a moment. So this is happening to a different class, different demographic of people, and now people are starting to look, hey, what's going on? But the thing is, we always should have been looking at this. When it was the poor person, when it was the poor Native American, when it was the poor African or so-called African American, when it was the poor so-called Latino, when it was these people, or the people that they had mental illnesses as well, we turned a blind eye to it. But now we're kind of looking at this. It was like, well, yeah, this kid did this. Maybe he had a mental illness. Okay, maybe he does have a mental illness, but what about all the other crimes that were committed? They had mental illnesses too, probably, right? And then for them to go at the parents the way they're going at it, it lets me know that you've gone at every other case like that. You brought in non-facts, try to factor situation. The only thing these parents can really be tried on, because at the end of the day, the school had the final decision on whether or not to. The school had the final decision because the school wasn't using that state law to send them to have him stay there. The school wasn't doing that. The school told him he had to go. The parents said he didn't want to. The school said, okay, we'll let him stay. So that's what that was about. And the school never consulted the principal. And there's a police officer. You can call him whatever you want, resource or whatever. They already knew that they were susceptible to this because the police actually are resident at the school. And you didn't tell the police officer who was at the school about this occurrence and this meeting and all this stuff that was going on. So there's a lot of liability right there. There's a lot of fault right there. If we want to start throwing stones at people, let's do it. But let's do it the way Christ did it. He's like, man, let's put everybody in line. And that's what I'm like. So either everyone's going to get grace and mercy to understand what actually happened, or everyone's going to get the same non-measure of grace and mercy and line them up, and let's just start throwing stones. So the school definitely extremely liable in this situation. And all those people who, the leadership, principals, even though the principal didn't know, like, what type of, from my understanding, there really were no procedures on this. It's like, I just want to know if this is not big enough to make it to my desk, but vaping is, we need to take a look at that. So now the parents shouldn't be held liable for what happened at the school, what happened with the decision to keep them at school, because at the end of the day, the school is the final decision. The school let them stay. Now we're just talking about the purchase of the gun and the access to the gun. Well, we know the gun was locked away. That we know. Except for that morning, the gun was locked away. That we know. They've leaked that. They leaked it, and this is what we know. They also leaked the social media, and we know that they were using it to go to the gun range. They bought it to them as a Christmas present, which you're allowed to do in Michigan, if the intent is to be able to go to the gun range and if it's locked away when it's not at the gun range. This is what they did. So they really don't even have a case. That's the thing that you can get them on, but you don't have a case. They bring up about their horses being sold. They bring up about their house. They bring up about their relationship status. They bring up about any of this other stuff is wrong. It's wrong. Even down to the fact of them paying attention to him. Because I'm telling you, in today's, listen, I came up in the 80s, it was a Nintendo. You bought your kid a Nintendo. When they came home from school, it meant that you didn't have to talk to them. And that wasn't my experience with my parents. My parents didn't let me do the Nintendo like that. We only played it we got Nintendo late in the game. And we could only play it on weekends. So my parents were very involved with talking to us, homework, sports, whatever. They were very involved. But most parents aren't. When I went to school I went to, most parents were very influential, very well off. They didn't have to. They had maids. They had high-paying jobs. And it's just like, we're going to buy them the latest whatever. Have at it. I mean, I even had a friend, he was responsible. He was like in the 5th or 6th grade. His father was a dentist. And he was making a lot of money. He actually lived across the street from a guy from us named Isaiah, a basketball player named Isaiah Thomas. And so that's how much money he had. And he was responsible for getting his own breakfast in the morning. I was just like, wow. I never really thought about it till later in life, man. It was such a blessing that I had my mom, and she always made us breakfast every single morning. But that wasn't some of these kids' experiences. It was like their parents were so hands off. That's not some of the parents. That's not most of the parents. That's almost all the parents, especially in these affluential areas. This is the price. This is the payoff This is the price that you pay to have these high-paying jobs that consumes all your time and now stresses you out. And when you're at home, you don't want to deal with anyone, and I dealt with that and recuperating from that now. So I just wanted to talk to you about this from a justice perspective. If you're going to charge these people and go through a trial, let's charge them with a crime that they actually committed. Not, you should have known. Well, if they should have known, a lot of people should have known. The guidance counselors should have known. They should have known to tell the principal. And then that principal should have, with him knowing, he should have known to tell the police. There's a lot of should have knowns. It's different if you have a direct threat. I'm going to kill someone at 3 o'clock and all these things happen and then this happened. But you're dealing with, even when they release, I don't know how they did this because it's supposed to be an active investigation. So I don't know why we were able to see the paper in which the kid was writing these notes. But if you look at it, it was very happenstantial. It was like on the same paper that he said, I can't get the thoughts out of my head. On that same paper, he said, I love everybody. So what are you to believe? You're looking at a piece of paper. It says, I love everybody. I can't get these thoughts out of my head. So I'm supposed to look at that and say, you know what? Because you were looking at bullets yesterday in class, you're about to kill everyone. I think they did the right thing in making the assessment, you need to go home. But then they should have enforced it. You don't give the parents the option to say, no, we have to go back to work so we can't take them home. No, that's the wrong thing to do. So, like I said, if you want to get the Crumleys, from a justice perspective, I guess, go ahead. But you're going to have to line up a lot of other adults, a lot of other parents, and even probably some people in the prosecution's office you're going to have to line up because the way this is being done is wrong. And it's letting me know we need to take a look at all your cases because you'd probably be doing that the whole time. Things that have nothing to do with something else, especially if it's a crime committed by someone who was more of a disenfranchised group, a group that you don't like. And I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about even sexual orientation, gay, lesbian, all that stuff should be the same. You have to apply the same rule, the same law. Go look at my video, One Law. You have to apply the same rule across the board, or else injustice. So if these people, if justice is done to them, it's injustice to everyone. But injustice has already been done because we already have millions of cases in the United States, millions, literally millions, where injustice has been done and no one has cared. So now that it's coming around, this is kind of like this is the price we pay. And listen, that stuff does add up and it does come around, and God does judge at the end. He does judge. So just wanted to share that with you. Let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts on that. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm not saying the parents were liable or not liable, or incompetent or incompetent. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is, let's bring up facts relevant to the case. Did they get a direct threat? Did they listen to a phone call? Did they get a text message? Did they get a Facebook post that he was going to do this? Did they find a manifesto that he was going to do this? Let's talk about these type of. Did they buy a gun illegally for him? Maybe it was a different gun. Maybe this was the gun he used in target practice, but then maybe the gun that he shot everybody with was really a different gun, and they bought that gun for him. And maybe that was with the intention of him being able to have protection at school. Let's bring up those facts on the case, and let's be able to judge that and be like, yep, you shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. But to talk about someone's horses and their mortgage payments is wrong. And I know a lot of you probably don't feel that way, but wait until you find yourself in that situation, like a lot of us did with COVID, where you're not able to pay the bills on time, you're not able to have the same type of revenue. Because if you really feel that way, then don't apply for any of these loans or any of this stuff. Don't apply for that stuff, because what you're saying is life doesn't happen. Well, that's what you're saying. You're saying that you should always make the same revenue no matter what happens. You should always make the same revenue. So what I'm saying is, I'm interested in your comments. If we should be judging these people, if we're going to judge them, let's judge them based on actual facts. And let's not leak things into the paper that have nothing to do with the case. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.